Hi, I'm Perry. I'm a results leader.
You're listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Being a thought leader is easy. Getting results is hard. This show is for the results leader who lives and dies by their results. Here is your host and Chief Results Leader, Jonathan Rivera.
You're here, I'm here, we're all here, and it is all happening right now on ResultsLeader.fm. Stoked that you guys are back, and we're going to jump into this. Today, I've got a guy who is a man of faith, who is a man on a mission to make businesses more profit and more cash flow. Mr. Perry Trevithick joins us on Results Leader. Perry, welcome to the show. Glad that you are here. Are you ready to do this?
I am ready and excited. Thank you.
All right, let's give our listeners a quick win. What book have you given most as a gift?
I am a member of the Gideons International, and we pass out Bibles. So that's the book I've given most. I've given out thousands of copies in many countries.
Okay. Any particular book inside of the Bible that happens to be your favorite?
I'd probably say the book of John. It's very poetic. He's not, although I'm a finance guy by training, but he's not so much in order of sequence, sequence of events, but in order of importance. And John kind of has a mystical way of looking at things. But I tell people, even if the Bible's not the Word of God, which I believe it is, that if they read the book of John, they'll find it's the most amazing literature ever written, I believe. It's just incredible.
I'm going to dig back in. I've been going into the book of Proverbs over and over again, but I think it's time to move to something different. And you just talked me into that. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, book of Proverbs is great too. It's all good.
So why don't you tell us a story of how an apparent failure set you up for later success?
Okay, let's see. Well, I remember several years ago, I worked for a local entrepreneur, and it was fun. I was CFO for lots of different businesses, a NASCAR racing team, at one time up to 26 Burger King locations, and the commercial real estate under several of them, plus other pieces of commercial real estate. He had a finance company or two, and so in the morning I would CFO for one company, in the afternoon I was meeting with other investors and represent, a CFO of a different company, and so it was a lot of fun. But when he got into NASCAR, he just went crazy with it, and he quit listening to me, and ultimately went bankrupt. And me and several other people missed some pay at the end. I stuck around a little bit too long. He quit paying us after a period of time. I was the first one to leave, but that was maybe not so much a personal failure. I guess it was in the sense I should have left earlier when I wasn't getting paid. But you kept thinking there was one around the corner. Things were going to turn around. But since then, I already had my own consulting business. But since then, I've stepped into that and have worked with some great clients and helped them accelerate their business and work fewer hours while making more money, and dived into my own business training. Early in my life, I know what I have. We don't have ever for a long time for this interview, and I'll make this short. I was always interested in science, but I didn't want to go to school until I was in my 30s. And my dad was a businessman. I thought, well, business is pretty cool. It's numbers and people, and I like both. And so I'm kind of a business nerd. I've read all sorts of business books and have accelerated that now that I have my own business. And so I feel like I'm at the top of my game. My knowledge is really accelerated. So that's my comeback story.
What'd you learn from that whole incident with your NASCAR friend?
Well, first of all, you have to think about your business as a business. He had always loved car racing. He had pictures of himself with, having been involved in car racing at much lower levels than the top level of NASCAR. In fact, he bought his racing team. He and a partner bought his racing team from Red Bull. And if you know much about Red Bull, they're not afraid to spend a lot of money on sports, especially extreme sports. But if NASCAR was too rich for Red Bull, then unless you're a billionaire, you probably shouldn't get into it. And one of the things that really drilled home to me is that for just about every business I've been around, they're just a few steps away, just doing a few things differently from being where they are to having a much higher level of success. There's, maybe 8 or 10 things in business that are really important. And if you just focus on those and do a good job at those, you're going to be far much more successful than your competitors.
What would you say is the most worthwhile investment you've ever made?
Are we talking about a money investment or just?
Whatever comes to mind is what I want you to share with us.
Okay. Well, I'd say the most worthwhile investment is in my children. We have 3 children, and they're all grown. The youngest will be out of college in a couple months here. And I'm so proud of my kids. They're all course, I'm totally unbiased, but I think they're all intelligent. They're compassionate. The older two, the younger one's just getting out of college, but the older two work in professions where they don't make a lot of money, but they really make a difference in the lives of people. So I'm really proud of them that they have their priorities right. And my wife homeschooled them. She poured a lot more into them than I did, but but that investment has really paid off.
The homeschool thing is interesting because you're talking about that now and your kids are growing, but there was a stigma around homeschooling, wasn't there, when your kids were younger?
It sure was. That's a good point, right?
I mean, how'd you guys deal with that? I'm curious.
Well, the stigma was, and it's not totally untrue, that for a lot of homeschool families, that their kids were a little socially awkward. But it's funny. I remember seeing a billboard one time of a minivan at an aggressive angle going up a hill that said something about, just because you drive a van doesn't mean that you're a boring person or whatever. My wife homeschooled, but one thing we found with homeschooling is the average amount of instruction that takes place in a school day is about 2.5 hours. So they would get their lessons done pretty early, and then they hopped in that little minivan. We lived in Idaho for a while, for example, and they had a lot of fun driving all over the place, exploring the city. And we moved out here, they did a lot of that too. And they got to do a lot of things that kids in public schools don't. And I think my kids all were well adjusted socially. So, but were some homeschool families that were a little more
Eccentric.
yeah, right, a little more eccentric or sheltered, and
Put it nicely, yeah.
their kids might have been not quite so socially adept.
Yeah, I hear you, man, because we're having this discussion and dude, you've just confirmed something huge. And I'm going to have to ask my wife to listen to this because we are on the fence with that. And that's what we're hearing. All of our friends have turned to the homeschool thing and now they're all living free lives and they're all saying the same thing. 2, maybe 3 hours and that's it. Yeah. We're sending our kid off for 8 or 10 hours. I'm thinking
Right.
something's got to give here. And I would rather pour into my son for an hour and a half or 2 hours or 3 hours, whatever, split it with my wife, than to let him go over there and become, I don't know what he's going to become over there because he's out of my control.
Well, that's right. Depending on what school system your kids are in, they may well be taught very different values than what you want them to know. And in fact, one of the early, and I am not against public schooling, but it is true that one of the early people who was a big force behind the public school system in the U.S. said that a lot of these kids are in Sunday school, for an hour or two on Sunday, and maybe in church a few other hours of the week. But we get them, all these hours, 5 days a week. Guess who's going to win the values war? And especially now that the values war is a lot different than it was when I was growing up, and so if you have traditional values, I think that's worth taking a look at.
This is what you're hearing here is some like Christian talk. I can feel. I know exactly what you mean. So, but we're getting total sidebar for my own curiosity. That's why I do the show. Let's get back on script. In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Well, I'm an optimistic person, and I always believe that there's a way to make the future better. I'm also a very determined person. So there's times in my life that I've stumbled. I described that situation with a former business owner where I was the CFO, and then I've started my own business, and I have some clients, but I could use some more clients. The clients I have are getting great results, and they love working with me. That's a part of my business that that I will get better at is client acquisition. But just my determination that when I see something worthwhile, that I'm going to stick with it and make it work and learn what I need to get around the obstacles. I think that has really served me well over the years, helped me have a good career and helped me in my life.
What are some bad recommendations you hear in your area of expertise?
Some of the bad things are, well, first of all, there's a lot of people who do business coaching who really don't know a lot about business. And I would say the especially bad area is marketing. There's a lot of small business marketing companies out there that frankly aren't very good. In fact, I remember telling a finance friend one time that if we did our finance work the way that they do their marketing, we would lose our professional certifications and maybe get sued. I mean, I'm not trying to be overly negative, but a lot of these marketing companies aren't that great. And one reason I'm excited about you and your business is that, for example, obviously I have an outgoing personality. I think that's a little unusual for somebody with a finance background like me. So I think what's really going to work for me is to do public speaking and maybe start my own podcast, just to create a personal connection with people in that way. I've tried digital marketing, and I think maybe I got things out of order. When you start your own business, lots of times you're often told, oh, you're one funnel away.
Oh
And
gosh.
obviously that works for a lot of people, but I'm starting to think, maybe I've got things out of order. Start off locally, start off smaller, personal relationships, and then as I build my business, then maybe add that to it. But for me, that's not a good place to start.
It's funny that you say that because I like to think of it in terms of either you're one conversation away, like us right now, or one relationship away, which we both have relational businesses. So the funnel, though, no, it doesn't even tick a box for me. So I'm glad you said that. All right, we're about to get into the results portion of the show. But before we do that, I got to ask you, have you shared the show? If you're digging what I'm laying down here, then I want to ask you to share this show with somebody who will find it helpful. Share it on your social medias. Use the hashtag ResultsLeaderFM, and I'll be looking for you out there. Thank you. So let's talk about results. Why do results matter?
Well, results are why we work, why we do things, especially when I work with my clients, for example. They trust me. They're giving money to me. They're spending their valuable time with me to help improve their business. And, for example, when I was a CFO in, an industry and not a business coach, and it's the same thing as a business coach. I feel the responsibility to do my very best because I know so many people and their families are depending on me to do a good job. If I'm CFO of a company and I don't do a good job and the company struggles because I'm not on top of my game, well, there's marriages and families that are hurt by that. And I take that responsibility very seriously. And same thing as a business coach or consultant, that, I take that responsibility seriously. Somebody's trusted me with their time and their resources. And, I take a lot of pleasure in seeing the results that they get. So vitally important.
In the last 5 years, what new realization has helped you get better results for your clients?
Well, I think I alluded to this earlier, that in a lot of ways, business isn't that complicated. There's maybe 6 or 8 areas that if you focus on, you do at least an adequate job in those areas, that you're going to have much better results than you did before compared to your competitors. I think so many people, have you ever read the book E-Myth?
Dude, I live by that book.
So many people start their business by firing their boss. I'm a plumber, for example, and my boss doesn't know what he's doing. I'm going to start my own plumbing business. Well, the person's a great plumber, but they don't know how to run a business. But if they learn the basics of running a business, they can have a very good one. So so many business owners are what I call firefighters. They're so sucked into running their business, they work in their business instead of on their business. So I want to teach them in fact, I've got one client, he told me recently, I'm starting to think, after working with you for a little while now, I'm starting to think like a CEO. And so that's very gratifying to see that he's starting to get it, starting to change how he approaches his business.
Okay, so I want to run something by you and get your take on this. I heard you say that most businesses or business owners or firefighters, they're running around putting out fires. So they're not actually being intentional, they're being reactive in their day.
Right.
I had someone tell me this, and I wanted to get your take on it. He says that most business owners are arsonists. They're starting fires to give them something to do. What would you say about that?
I'm trying to think back. I think the business owners I've worked with, that I haven't seen that. That may well be true. There's probably a personality type where, and maybe that's a form of procrastination. I can start a fire over in this area where I know how to put that fire out, and that then I have an excuse for not dealing with this fire in this other area where I'm uncomfortable or I have to stretch myself to fix that. So I can see that.
All right. What area of your business would you like better results?
Well, I mentioned earlier client acquisition. I am going to get good at that. I'm going to figure that out. And I have one of the things I teach my clients is to build their business to sell. Only about 5% of small businesses will be sold. The rest will be closed down or given away. And to me, that's just such a shame and so unnecessary. So my plan is to build my own business to sell. And I know I'm good at processes and scaling a business and all that. So once I get this part of my business figured out, I think I'm going to be off to the races.
What results are you most proud of?
This is in personal life or? or business?
Whatever comes to
Oh,
mind.
okay. Well, I mentioned my kids and the kind of people they've become. I'd say in my business life, I'd say the results my clients have achieved, or maybe some of the people that work for me. There's been a few people that have worked for me that contacted me several years later after I left the company or the company was sold or whatever, and said, "Hey, you inspired me, and I went back to school and finished my degree, and now I'm a CPA." And they really made a lot of progress in their career. I've had a couple people contact me like that, and that felt good to think I inspired people. Or like this one client I've worked with for a couple years, for example, he's since I started with him, he's more than tripled his profits, and he's just about on the cusp of having things just take off. We brought on a revenue operations consultant that's going to help us get the revenue operations part of the business in shape, and that it's not going to be 3x, it's going to be 15, 20x in not too distant future. But most importantly, he works 20 hours a week or so instead of 80. He's got a young family, and he was able to scale back his hours during all this COVID craziness. So he has young kids in his home, and so he was able to pour into them when they were home and homeschooling as opposed to going off to school. And I've worked those kind of hours. No matter who you are, you're tired, you're a little grumpy, you're burned out. So, he's a very different husband and father at home now, working those fewer hours.
I can imagine. So, any parting thoughts you'd like to share with the results leaders who can hear our voices right now?
Yes. Here's the one thing I'd say is, and this comes from somebody with a CFO background. I would say that if a business owner asked me that what's one area of my business I should focus on, I'd say, well, you need to be adequate in every area. You can't be below the water in any one area, but the one area you should focus on is your company culture. If you create a good strategic plan, define your mission, vision, values, and beliefs, and then share those and goals, and share those with your employees. In fact, use those to your values and beliefs to hire people who are aligned with you, and then share the goals with your employees and explain to them how their job helps fulfill those goals. And you'll have a team of people excited to achieve that plan with you. Even patents run out. You can patent your product, whatever, but nobody can exactly copy your culture. That is the one competitive advantage that somebody can't replicate. And there's nothing like a team of people excited and all in alignment, focused on a goal. So that would be my one thing: is be adequate in at least every other area, at least adequate, but focus on culture. That's where the juice is.
Powerful. So we have been speaking with Perry Trevithick. I hope I got it right.
Good job. Good job.
Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. Results leaders out there listening to us. Oh, you know what? I can't close a show. I almost close a show without giving you links back. Hey, man, where can people hear more from you?
Well, I have a website that I need to improve. It's solvingtheprofitpuzzle.com, or my email address is perry@solvingtheprofitpuzzle. And I'll share my phone number too, if that works, 703-835-6932.
Boom.
I'd look forward to just talking to anybody who wants to give me a call and see what value I can add, and we'll take it from there.
Beautiful. So thank you, Perry. Thank you, results leaders, for tuning in. And of course, we will have links to everything at the website. Be back next time.
Thank you.
That is a wrap for another edition of ResultsLeader.fm. If you are out there getting results for your clients and you want to be featured on the show, go to ResultsLeader.fm now and apply to be on the show. And if you love what you're hearing, share the show, give us a rating and review, do anything to help us get the message out there. Thought leadership is easy, but results leadership is hard. We'll catch you on the next one.
This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.